Welcome to the Cosmic Codex. What follows is episode 1 of our series Captain Miller, titled Into the Dark. Sit back, relax, and enjoy. It's the year 2245. Earth's orbital dockyards hung above the blue curve like a cathedral of steel. Within its latticed ribs, the HMS Valiant, long, sleek, and hungry, prepared to slip the leash of home. Today, she would take her first breath. On the bridge, Captain Aaron Miller sat in the command chair for the first time at readiness. 1,000 hours of drills behind him, a universe ahead. "Hands to stations," he ordered, his voice crisp. "Let's have it smart and tidy. Ensign Quill, confirm traffic clearance." "Aye, sir. Lane Delta 7 is green across the board. Dockmaster says we're the prettiest thing he's seen all week," Quill replied with a quick grin. Miller allowed the smallest smile. Let's not make a liar of him. At the helm, Alice Redgrave leaned into her console. "Undocking thrusters to 1/4. Whitaker, if your shiny engine sneezes while I'm kissing this umbilical goodbye, I'll never let you forget it." Her tone was teasing, almost playful. Chief Engineer Thomas Whitaker grumbled back, "Oh, take a breath, Redgrave. We've grafted on this girl for months. She purrs. You just don't yank her about like a donkey and she'll be sorted." Dr. Fenwick's dry voice cut in from the medical console. "If anyone insists on acting like a arse, report to sickbay for a muzzle and carrots." The bridge broke into laughter, but Miller shook his head. "Pipe down. Save the banter for after we clear the yard." A heavy thud rolled through the hull as the docking clamps released. "Dock clamps disengaged. We're free, Captain," Quill reported smartly. "Steady as she goes." The Valiant eased from the cradle, Earth vast and radiant beneath, clouds ribboned like chalk across slate blue seas. She was restrained power, a coiled spring of intent. "Telemetry clean," Dr. Evelyn Harcourt said, pleased. "Magnets along the spine are behaving." "Don't jinx it, Harcourt," Whitaker shot back, his tone dry. "The last time someone said that, we spent a week chasing a phantom oscillation through the coolant loops." "Which turned out to be your toolbox rattling," Redgrave said with a grin. "Oh, absolutely," Whitaker replied sarcastically. "My wrench destabilized quantum substrates. Brilliant." Miller gave a short chuckle. "Enough faffing. We've an audience. Quill, public channel." "Up on one, sir." Miller straightened in his chair, his voice softening as he spoke for the earth below. "This is Captain Aaron Miller of HMS Valiant. To the families and friends below, we'll bring them home and a bit of the dark with us. Valiant out." When the channel closed, he turned back to his crew. "Status for jump." "Astrometrics aligned. Epsilon Indy plotted," Harcourt confirmed. "Helm solutions copied," Redgrave added, steady at her post. "Probability wave engine on standby," Whitaker said, his voice firm. "Medical scanners primed for all manner of trouble," Fenwick remarked dryly. "If anyone plans to turn inside out, do give me a shout first," Miller smirked faintly. "Comforting. Whitaker, talk me through the ride one last time." Whitaker nodded, voice professional now. "On your command, we ramped the substrate injectors and pushed the hull into the quantum substrate. For a moment, we exist in all the places we could be, which sounds daft, but the math's rock solid. Navigation computes the optimal exit vector," Harcourt said reverently. "No time dilation. To us, it's near instant." "And to the rest of the universe?" Miller asked. "As if we stepped across a room," Harcourt replied. "Good. Let's not trip on the carpet. Redgrave set posture. Quill, internal to whisper only. I want the bridge calm." "Aye, sir," Quill said quietly. The Valiant slid between what was and what could be. Stars smeared into suggestions. For a brief heartbeat, the ship felt like a note struck inside a bell the size of creation. "Helm holds," Redgrave said steadily. "Attitude within tolerance." "Field coherence perfect," Harcourt whispered in awe. "That's beautiful." Told you she purrs, Whitaker said with quiet pride. If anyone finds their left hand waving from the right sleeve, Fenwick quipped, do let medical know. The doctor laughed at his own joke. Save the stand-up for the mess, Doctor, Miller replied, voice soft but firm. Mark. Reality clicked into place with silence that wasn't silence. Transition complete. Normal space confirmed. Epsilon Indy beacon acquired, Quill reported, surprised and pleased. We're here, Captain, Redgrave said. That exit felt clean. Sensors nominal, Harcourt confirmed. Good work, Miller said firmly. Quill, log it. Maiden jump, clean. Send our salute to control. The Valiant settled into the long glide toward the colony's orbital station, a pearl on a thin thread of light. All sections, stand down to cruising, Miller ordered. Marines. The meatheads report drills complete, sir, Quill interrupted with a grin. Commander Miller requests permission to put them through another round. Miller allowed a brother's warmth to touch his steel. Granted. Tell Meathead not to scuff my deck plates. Aye, sir. He'll be gutted, Quill replied with a laugh. Remind him that bruises are not a sign of progress, Fenwick added dryly. Says the man who calls sleep preventive medicine, Whitaker muttered. Grab a kip yourself, Doc. After Scran, Fenwick replied cheerfully. Priorities. Bridge rotation in 30, Miller announced. Keep it sharp. This is still the bit where everyone's watching and pretending not to. Redgrave, take us in like you've done this 100 times. So, blind and half asleep? Redgrave teased. You prat, Miller replied with a chuckle. Professional, I said. Professional it is, Redgrave answered, mock affront in her tone. The Valiant threaded the approach, her shadow sliding over the station's sunlit ribs. On every deck, people paused to feel the minute corrections run through the bones of the ship, an orchestra tuning to a single note. Relative drift null, 1 meter per second, Redgrave said. Kissing the cradle, now. The magnetic latches locked them into place. Hard dock, lines secure, Quill reported. Well done, Miller said quietly. Harcourt, begin station interface. Whitaker, keep the engine on a long lead but ready to run. Fenwick, prep for personnel transfer screenings. I'll catch the eager ones before they catch something else, Fenwick muttered. Try not to scare them off their Scran, Doc, Whitaker replied. This is our maiden port, Miller said, his tone firm. We'll be seen, measured, and gossiped about. Smile just enough. Work more than you smile. If anyone starts taking the mick, outwork them. Questions? Aye, Redgrave piped up brightly. After duty, permission to skive for 10 minutes and watch the sunset from the ring? Denied, Miller replied, fondness hidden beneath command steel. You can have 15. Logged as official captain's generosity, 15 minutes, Quill said with mock ceremony, laughing. Sunset data says the dust band will make the light pink, Harcourt observed softly. Take it in while you can, Miller told them, his voice reflective before turning firm again. We won't always have pretty things to look at. Right, let's get to it. Make this look easy, crew. The Valiant sat cradled against the station, a blade laid across silk. Orders flowed, hatches cycled, work began. Beyond the glass, a star burned on like it always had, indifferent, immense, and unaware that today was the first line of a story that would change everything. Resupply began smoothly. Cargo pods cycled across the transfer corridor, Marines moving crates with the casual rhythm of men and women who had drilled this 100 times. The colonists of Station Harper received the shipments with weary gratitude, their voices tinny but cheerful across the comms. For the first hour, everything was routine. The Valiant's maiden mission was shaping up to be almost disappointingly calm. Then the alarms began. A harsh klaxon cut across the shared common net. Emergency! Pod 7 has ruptured! Containment breach imminent! The station master's voice cracked with panic. Ejection systems offline, doors bowing, God help us! Miller was on his feet before the words had finished echoing. His voice cut through like steel. Mr. Whitaker, report. The engineer's eyes were already on his console, jaw set. Hazardous materials pod, hull integrity gone to hell. If she bursts in the transfer ring, station's done. He hesitated only a breath. We can vent it. Vent it? Redgrave asked sharp. Aye. Whitaker leaned forward, knuckles white on the edge of his console. Take Valiant's forward lasers, dial to a whisper. Cut a seam in the pod's belly from outside. It'll blow into the void instead of into their bulkheads. Risk assessment? Miller demanded. Harcourt's hands flicked across her display, running models. If we cut along Vector 183, the vent plume will spiral away harmlessly. But it has to be exact, too shallow, and it bounces back toward the station. Fenwick added, his tone dry but tense. And if those fumes contain toxins, we'll be gifting the void a poisonous fog, might drift into a ship's path down the line. Doctor, Miller said evenly, do we have a safer choice? Fenwick's lips pressed into a thin line. No, Captain. Better out there than in here. Agreed. Miller's tone brooked no further debate. Redgrave, bring us into position. Minimum safe range. No scratches. Aye, sir. She pushed the ship forward, easing Valiant alongside the bloated pod. The viewport showed it swelling unnaturally, seams glowing faint with stress, ready to burst. Range, 100 meters. Holding Whitaker, forward lasers, minimum yield. Lasers armed, the engineer confirmed. 0.5% output. Any lower, and we'd be using a magnifying glass. Harcourt's voice rose, tight with concentration. Trajectory locked. Cut must follow my mark exactly. Miller let the silence settle, making sure every ear was fixed on him. All stations, execute cleanly, fire. The thin beam lanced out, striking the pod with surgical precision. For a heartbeat, nothing happened. Then the hull tore open and a shriek of vaporized air roared into the void, a geyser of gas and glittering debris vented, spiraling into darkness. Containment stabilizing, Harcourt called, relief breaking through. Structural stress falling, she's holding. Maintain until pressure reads null, Miller ordered. Seconds stretched. The bridge held its breath. Finally, Harcourt gave a firm nod. Pressure 0, pod vented, station integrity restored. Quill nearly whooped. Captain, Harper Control is hailing. He broke into a grin. They're cheering. They say we've just saved their skins. Laughter rippled across the bridge, edged with adrenaline. Redgrave sagged back in her chair, exhaling hard. Not bad for our first outing. Medical note, Fenwick said dryly, though his eyes betrayed a flicker of relief. Nobody exploded. I call that a success. Whitaker slapped his console with satisfaction. And the old girl didn't flinch. Told you she purrs. Miller allowed himself a small smile before his voice cut steady again. Very good. Resume operations. Let's finish the resupply and stay on schedule. Hours later, the last pods were transferred, personnel rotations complete. Station Harper's crisis was behind them, though the memory lingered, their first true test passed together. Miller stood at the comm station, his voice carrying the weight of command. Fleet Command, this is HMS Valiant, resupply to Epsilon Indy Station complete. Preparing to transit to Zeta Reticuli as planned. He signed off, then turned toward his crew. Their eyes met his, tired but shining with quiet pride. Helm, Miller said at last, his voice brooding but resolute. Set course. Probability wave jump on my mark. Beyond the viewport, Epsilon Indy burned pale and indifferent. Ahead, waiting in the dark, lay Zeta Reticuli. Set course. Probability wave jump on my mark, Miller said, and the bridge moved as one. Redgrave's hands settled on the helm. Whitaker's fingers hovered over the engine controls. Harcourt's models fanned out across her display like frost. Course laid in, Redgrave replied. Zeta Reticuli as planned. Field lattice green, Whitaker said. Injectors standing by. Miller's gaze lingered a heartbeat on the forward viewport, Epsilon Indi, a pale coin over the hull. Then he nodded. "Engage!" The Valiant tilted into the strange, familiar hush of the substrate. Noise became a suggestion, light a thought. Redgrave watched the attitude indicator steady at dead center, nudging a fraction here, a fraction there, as if steering a ship through a memory. "Navigation lock," Miller said. Harcourt's brows pinched. "Working." A beat. Another. "Still working." Whitaker glanced over. "What's she playing at?" "It won't hold," Harcourt said, voice tightening. "We can't get an exit vector to stick inside the system. The map keeps smearing." Quill blew out a breath through his nose. "Brilliant. We'll be the crew people swap stories about in the pub, the first lot to get stuck in this bloody mess." "Let's not make history for the wrong reason," Miller said, calm as a metronome. "Options." Harcourt's hands moved again, a quiet urgency building. "I can resolve a solution outside the system proper, a hair wide of the heliopause, then we approach on conventional drive. It's clean enough." "Do it," Miller said. "Redgrave, prepare for a cold exit. Whitaker, if she kicks, I want the old girl ready to ride it." "Aye," Whitaker answered. "She'll keep her feet." The ship chose a groove in reality and stepped down. The first thing they felt was a shudder, subtle, not violent, a ripple through the deck like a breath held and released. Then a wave of pale luminescence drifted across the hull, a delicate film that rolled and vanished as if the ship had dipped through some unseen veil. "What in?" Whitaker began. "Registering a transient photonic event," Harcourt said, already chasing it down the graphs. "Multispectrum, non-ionizing. Harmless, I think." "Harmless, I think," Fenwick repeated, dry as old paper. Reassuring. Miller let the exchange pass, eyes on the forward display. The starfield ahead seemed ordinary at a glance, calm as a printed sky. But the instrument panels told another story. Lines wavered, numbers wouldn't sit still. "I'm getting gravimetric disturbance," Harcourt said, wonder finally touching her voice. "Multiple sources, large, amplitudes." "How large?" Miller asked. She swallowed. "Sir, they're significant. Inner system. Something's moving masses on a scale we don't have metaphors for." "Can I get eyes?" Miller said. "Working," Quill replied. He swept bands, tuning the ship's sensors like a radio. The image began to cohere, first as light geometry, then as structure. Lines became arcs, arcs became rings, and rings resolved into impossible architecture draped around a star. "Bloody Nora," Whitaker breathed before he could help himself. There were rings, plural, some intact, some fractured, bands of dark material orbiting in nested lattices. Between them, a filigree of scaffolds and webs, the skeleton of something too big to have been built and too precise to have formed by chance. Farther out, free-floating masses, polyhedral knots, spears like kilometer-long thorns, slabs with edges so straight they made the eyes ache. Harcourt's metrics crawled. "These are artificial, they have to be. Repeating ratios, non-Keplerian positions, active stabilization. I'm seeing energy signatures, multiple. It's an entire industrial ecology." "Say again?" Miller asked quietly. "It's a build," she said, almost reverent. "Not a station, not a ship, a network. If half of this is still active, whoever made it could move worlds." Quill's console chimed, a bright little sound that felt strangely out of place in the hush. "Picking up transmissions," he said, blinking at his board. "Lots of them. Low, mid, microwave, lasercom pings, dozens of channels. It's layered. There's structure. Captain, it's comms." "Can you read it?" Miller asked. "Not a line," Quill said, unable to keep the grin from his voice. "But it's not noise. This is someone talking, or a lot of someones. Structured packets, repeaters, handshakes, proper traffic. We're hearing an alien network." The bridge swelled with something that might have been joy if they'd let themselves give it a name. Redgrave leaned back, eyes wide. Fenwick's mouth actually quirked upward. Even Whitaker had that far-away look you get when you're a child again, and the world has offered you something new, ridiculous, and beautiful. "Steady on," Miller said, but he didn't quite manage to iron the warmth out of his voice. "We'll do this by the book. Harcourt?" "Observation protocols ready," she said. "I can put together a passive approach plan, map emissions, triangulate active nodes, watch for traffic density." "Quill, keep listening," Miller said. "Catalog everything. No transmissions from us yet, not until we know where to shout and who's listening." "Aye," Quill replied, fingers already flying. "I'll start by building a cadence map. See if there's a base clock we can hang a hat on." "Redgrave," Miller said, "we're outside the system margin. How long to the inner net on gravitic drive?" She ran the numbers twice to be sure. "Several hours at safe thrust. Depends where we cut in. If we aim for that primary ring." She highlighted a structure whose arc glowed across half the display. "Call it 6 hours with a margin." "Make it 5.5, Whitaker said, not looking up. "I can give you a whisper more thrust if you don't mind the deck plates humming." "Doctor?" Miller asked. "Any objections?" Fenwick spread his hands. "From a medical perspective, I recommend we do not introduce ourselves by vomiting on their carpet. Slow is fine." "Plot the approach," Miller said. "Conventional gravitic drive, no substrate hops until we know what we're dealing with. We'll take the long road and keep our eyes open." "Aye, Captain," Redgrave said. Her hands moved with a pilot's small, precise grace. "Course set." "Engage," Miller said. The main drive came in like a deep breath taken through the bones. The Valiant nosed inward, a single clean vector drawn toward the glittering confusion around a sun. The bridge settled into its work. There were lists and protocols, and at the end of every list, someone had written first contact with a little underline as if the words might run away if you didn't pin them down. "Marines will want guidance," Quill said over his shoulder. "Ceremonial versus practical." "They'll get practical," Miller said. "No weapons up front. We go in as explorers, not a parade." "Aye," Quill said. "I'll have Commander Miller brief his lot. They're already polishing their boots." Fenwick pretended to scribble a note. "Vaccinations. Unknown alien common cold, not recommended. Handshakes optional." Redgrave smothered a laugh. "Let's try not to sneeze at the neighbors, yeah?" Whitaker's voice came from engineering, softer than usual. "I keep looking at those rings and trying to put them in a ledger. Tons of mass, stresses, power lines. Someone solved problems we haven't called by their names yet." Harcourt's answer was almost a whisper, the sort reserved for museums and chapels. "Look at the ratios on that lattice. 3 layers, each a different orientation. They're cancelling torque with geometry. That node there." She pointed at a spark bright enough to sting. "It's pulsing. Not random. There's a beat." "Catalog it," Miller said. "We'll want the beat if we ever mean to dance." They worked. The hours stretched ahead of them not as a delay but as a gift. Time to prepare, to wonder, to be careful. Quill built little towers out of the noise, stacks of timing and repetition that might later make a grammar. Harcourt turned the system into a map of vectors and force, her models shifting as new data came in. Whitaker walked his kingdom, tuning, listening, one hand on the drive as if it were an animal you spoke to with touch more than words. Redgrave watched their course line cleave the dark. Every so often she glanced up at the structures, glutting the view. At a particular angle, the nearest ring looked like a horizon, as if they were sailing toward the edge of an artificial world. "Captain," she said quietly, "permission to be properly excited." "Granted," Miller said. She smiled, a small, contained thing. "I didn't think I'd see this, not actually see it." "None of us did," Miller said. He let the moment sit a heartbeat, then eased them on. "All right, we're not tourists. Let's keep professional. Harcourt, I want a running estimate of anything that looks like traffic lanes or exclusion zones. If there's a pattern to how they move, we'll keep politely out of it." I'm on it, she said. Her display bloomed with faint threads, techno-constellations drawing and redrawing themselves as data trickled in. Quill, Miller added, put together a simple greeting packet. Math, primes, a few human constants. We'll keep it in our pocket until we're close enough that it won't just look like another bit of space static. Aye, Quill said. I'll make it tidy. Fenwick rolled his chair back and folded his arms. I'll be in sick bay, preparing to be surprised. Prepare to be polite as well, Miller said. If we meet anyone, we do not lead with jokes. Even good ones, Fenwick asked. Especially good ones, Miller said. The Valiant pressed on. Behind them, Epsilon Indi was already a memory. Ahead, the inner system widened like an invitation. The luminescent ripple that had washed their hull at arrival faded in memory to a footnote on Harcourt's log. Odd, noted, filed. The gravimetric graphs still pulsed with those grand, slow waves from deeper in, the sort of data that made you feel very small and very lucky to be alive at the same time. Captain, Redgrave said after a while, we're making good time. Drive's happy, trajectory true. Keep it so, he said. He looked around his bridge, at the faces he had chosen, at the ship he had been given. Pride moved through him like quiet weather. Remember what we are. We're guests. We mind our manners. Aye, came the murmured chorus. Hours yet to go. A universe to learn. The Valiant wrote her straight line into the black and sailed for the heart of Zeta Reticuli. The hours of approach had been filled with work. Charts updated, comms catalogued, structures logged one after another, until the data queues stretched like an unspooling rope. Excitement had not abated. If anything, it grew sharper with each anomaly revealed. Harcourt leaned forward, eyes on her console. Binary confirmed. Both stars dwarfs. It's Reticuli 1 holding most of the structures. Gravitic anomalies are rhythmic, almost tidal, but with amplitudes in the wrong order of magnitude. Artificial? Miller asked. Her hesitation spoke volumes. If it is, it's something we don't have language for yet. Whitaker grunted. Moving stars round like coffee cups, are they? Clever little neighbors we have. The bridge laughed, but not enough to drain the tension. Then Quill's console screamed. The comms officer flinched as his display flooded with static. Massive inbound burst. Captain, it's hitting every band. Radio, laser, microwave. It's a bloody flood. Filter, Miller snapped. Quill's hands danced, jaw tight. I'm trying, but wait, resolving. Captain, I've managed to isolate a visual transmission. Audio is still too heavily scrambled. The main display flickered. Static, blocky distortion, then clarity enough to make out something. A figure. It stood tall, pale-headed, eyes vast and black as void. It looked in every way like the little grey alien that has been in Earth media for centuries. A being in a plain black jumpsuit, framed by a chamber so vast its edges vanished. Behind it, the walls shuddered like the whole structure was shaking apart. The alien lifted its arms, mouth working frantically, but no sound carried. The bridge went still. My God, Harcourt whispered. The image cracked, dissolved, then returned sharper, the being still gesturing, still mute. Another wave of data hit Quill's board like a hammer. His console shrieked. More bursts, tenfold. I can't hold this. Captain, I'll lose the array. Shut it down, Miller ordered. Sir. Now, Quill. The feed cut. The display died to black. For a heartbeat, the only sound was the thrum of Valiant systems. Captain, Harcourt's voice wavered. Something's moving. In the star, every head turned. At first, it looked like a blister on the dwarf star's surface, a molten swelling of plasma. But it grew. A moon-sized knot bulged outward, fire streaming from it in molten banners slowly slipping back to the star. Some type of mass displacement, Harcourt breathed. The star is losing a huge amount of matter. Captain, the constant is dropping rapidly. The fire peeled back. The haze of plasma dissipated, revealing not rock, not gas, something artificial. A cylinder. Black, immense, its flanks ridged with spines and struts. It slid outward like some colossal weapon drawn from its sheath. Thousands of kilometers long, it dwarfed every megastructure in the system. Everything humanity knew of ships or stations was nothing next to this. "Bloody Nora," Whitaker whispered. "That's a ship." "Analysis," Miller commanded, watching the object slowly move away from the star. Harcourt quickly replied, "Nothing from sensors, Captain. Either its hull is shielded from scans or the star having a bite taken out of it is causing interference. I am picking up strange readings near the object, not sure what to make of it." As the crew watched amazed at the grandeur of the object, a darkness began to envelop it. Once the object was fully engulfed in this shadowy dark, it seemed to dissolve or dissipate, and as the darkness faded back into normal space, the massive object, thousands of kilometers in length, something that seems to have just harvested some of a star in whose system lived a quite advanced civilization, was gone. The star pulsed. A gravimetric shockwave tore outward, invisible but brutal. The Valiant bucked violently, the hull groaning like a wounded animal, consoles sparking amidst the crew as the emergency alarms wailed. "All stations brace!" Miller's shout cut through the din. The wave struck again, and the system answered with its death knell. One of the massive orbital rings shuddered, its span twisting under the new gravity. Segments snapped, splintering away, slamming into the neighboring ring. The impact flashed with silent fury, fragments the size of continents scattering into the void. Another ring tore, lattices unraveling in a storm of wreckage. Two collided side-on, giant hoops of steel and alloy smashing together like titans at war, breaking apart in incandescent arcs. Shattered girders fell sunward, striking the dwarf star and exploding in bursts of light and rolling plasma. "Orbitals are collapsing," Harcourt cried. "Whole structures falling into the primary." The dwarf star lit with each impact. Flare after flare burst across its surface as alien megastructures died in fire. Then the planet, a gas giant that had circled the star for untold ages, suddenly wavered as its moon slipped free of its leash. The system's stability was shattered. The moon was falling. On the main screen, the crew watched as it slowly began to tumble inward, drawn faster and faster into its parent. The crew said nothing. The moon struck with apocalyptic force. The planet's upper layers rippled outward like water, then tore open. Shockwaves circled its circumference, cyclones blooming vast enough to swallow Earth whole. A white flash seared the bridge as atmosphere vaporized in moments. "Oh, bloody hell," Redgrave whispered, voice thin. The Valiant shook again, alarms shrieking. "Engines screaming," Whitaker roared. "Substrate couplings out of alignment. Drive won't hold another wave." "Navigation!" Miller barked. "The map's collapsing," Harcourt cried. "Vectors shifting faster than we can lock." "Give me any exit you got," Miller commanded. "Now!" Whitaker's hands slammed controls, forcing calibrations, lights strobing crimson across his board. "Hold on to something." The Valiant dove into the substrate. Space itself howled around her, hull plates thrumming, lights guttering. The ship groaned like it would split apart. Then, with a wrench that seemed to tear the soul, she slipped free and fell into silence. No stars, no beacon, only the endless black gulf of interstellar space. Engineering systems sputtered, panels ticked with cooling stress. On the bridge, the crew sat pale, breathing hard, every man and woman hearing their own heartbeat louder than the ship. "Report," Miller said, his voice steadied by will alone. "Power unstable but intact," Whitaker rasped. "Hull holding. Drive." He shook his head. "Drive's crippled." "Minor injuries, no casualties," Fenwick added, forcing professionalism, though his hands shook. "Navigation?" Miller asked. Harcourt stared at her darkened board. "No stars in range, no beacons. We're adrift, Captain. Nowhere." The words hung like ice. Miller looked at them all. His crew, his responsibility, their eyes begged for certainty. He gave them what he could. We aren't done in yet. This crew is on this ship because each of you earned the right to be here, and I ain't having none of that. I want options. Silence. Then Harcourt's voice, quiet but clear. There is one way. The drive can recalibrate itself, if we let it. Blind substrate jumps, each one bringing us closer to home, or further away. A murmur rippled across the bridge. Fear, doubt, the weight of the unknown. Miller rose, iron in his voice. You heard her. That's our course. We sail blind, but we sail. Understood? Aye, Captain, came the answer, shaken but resolute. The Valiant drifted in the dark, battered but alive, her crew steadying themselves for the long road home through the vast and empty unknown. You've been listening to the Cosmic Codex. This concludes Episode 1 of Captain Miller, Into the Dark. Stay tuned for more episodes as well as everything science and science fiction. Like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video and keep your eyes on the stars.